Good morning. We're remembering the legacy of war hero and Senator John McCain, who leaves behind a legacy. He's passed away at the age of 81.
The former Republican presidential nominee losing his year-long battle with brain cancer.
He went home to Arizona for treatment in December. Everyone remembers that. Then on Friday, his family announced he was discontinuing that treatment. He passed away late Saturday afternoon, just days before his 82nd birthday.
Tucker Carlson now takes a look back at the senator's life.
John Sidney McCain III was born in 1936 on a military base in the Panama Canal Zone to one of the most prominent families in the United States Navy. McCain's grandfather accepted the Imperial Japanese surrender aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay in 1945. His father, also a four-star general, later commanded all American naval forces in the Pacific. After graduating from Episcopal High School in Virginia, McCain followed their lead, entering the Naval Academy in the class of 1958. By the time war broke out in Vietnam, McCain was an aviator, having already bailed out of 2 airplanes during training. In June of 1967, he nearly lost his life for a 3rd time. A rocket aboard the aircraft carrier Forrestal went off accidentally and struck his plane as it idled on deck. 134 sailors died, but McCain rolled through the flames to safety.
I felt this tremendous blow to my airplane and saw the fire coming out, so I probably had reacted a little more quickly than those in the planes near me. Some of those in the planes near me didn't survive.
4 months later, his luck ran out. On October 26, 1967, during a daytime bombing mission over downtown Hanoi, McCain's plane was hit by a missile he later described as like a flying telephone pole. Gravely injured during ejection, McCain landed in a lake in front of thousands of angry North Vietnamese civilians, one of whom stabbed him in the groin with a bayonet. Authorities dragged McCain in chains to Hoa Lo Prison, later dubbed the Hanoi Hilton. To this day, there is a statue of John McCain on the banks of the lake where he was shot down, celebrating his capture.
He was terribly injured, fractured arms, broken knee, left arm was out of the socket. He had not been fed, and basically he was starving to death.
McCain's captors soon discovered he was an admiral's son, and they offered him early release as a propaganda coup. McCain refused, showering his guards with defiant profanity. He spent the next 3 years in solitary confinement being tortured with ropes. The experience pushed him repeatedly to the edge of death. He was sustained by fellow American prisoners with whom he communicated by tapping in code on the walls of the prison. One of those men was Medal of Honor recipient Air Force Colonel Bud Day.
Bud Day was the most steadfast, the most inspirational, and the toughest of anybody that I must have something to do with his Iowa upbringing.
McCain was finally released in 1973 to a hero's welcome back in America, but his health and his marriage were permanently damaged. To the end of his life, he could never fully raise his arms. And though as a rule he never mentioned it, he sometimes needed help to brush his hair and dress. In 1981, he retired from the Navy as a captain and moved to Arizona to marry Cindy Hensley, a teacher from a prominent Phoenix family. Encouraged by Ronald Reagan to run for Congress, McCain spent 2 terms in the House of Representatives before being elected to the Senate in 1986. McCain held that seat for 31 years. He became one of the most energetic and visible politicians in America, famous both for his subversive sense of humor and his savage temper. After a brush with scandal in 1989 during the savings and loan meltdown, McCain developed into a champion of campaign finance reform. The McCain-Feingold Law, passed in 2001, is maybe his signature legislative achievement. Although less well-known, McCain also spent decades working on behalf of American Indian tribes and airline deregulation, 2 of his personal passions. In 1999, McCain began a run for president. He crisscrossed the primary states for the better part of a year in an aging tour bus he called the Straight Talk Express. He was accompanied by former POWs and a star-struck press corps who were awed by the candidate's wit and candor and the reckless, exuberant way he ran. For a brief period, it looked like McCain might win the nomination. He beat George W. Bush in the New Hampshire primary by 19 points that year, but his seat-of-the-pants challenge collapsed soon after, and he conceded in March of 2000, returning to the Senate. McCain soon emerged as a leading voice on American foreign policy. He helped lead the charge for George W. Bush's invasion of Iraq in 2003, as well as for the bitterly debated troop surge in that country several years later. At the end of Bush's second term, McCain once again announced his candidacy for president. This time, he won the nomination. In a surprise move at the Republican convention in Minneapolis, McCain introduced his running mate, Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. He later conceded he barely knew Palin. Her addition boosted the ticket for a time, but in the end, unified media support for his opponent and a historic financial collapse that voters blamed on the Republican donor class proved insurmountable. McCain lost that race definitively in November. McCain's concession speech that year revealed as much about him as anything he ever said in public. Beneath the aviator's bluster and his legendary temper lay a bedrock of decency and a total commitment to good manners in the face of defeat.
Senator Obama and I have had and argued our differences, and he has prevailed. No doubt many of those differences remain. These are difficult times for our country, and I pledge to him tonight to do all in my power to help him lead us through the many challenges we face.
Back in the Senate, McCain retook his place as the most powerful voice for neoconservative foreign policy, expanded American military commitments abroad, nation building, the spread of democratic government. He rallied for military intervention in Libya against Muammar Gaddafi. He pushed for political reform in Egypt. He called for regime change in Syria. He became one of the few elected officials willing to argue for more American troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Even as he remained ferociously hawkish on foreign affairs, McCain, like his hero and friend Arizona Democrat Mo Udall, moved steadily leftward on domestic matters, notably immigration. By the time the Republican Party nominated Donald Trump in the summer of 2016, McCain seemed close to a complete break with his own party. He pulled his endorsement of Trump and became one of the new president's most persistent critics. For a man battered by physical suffering in his early decades, McCain spent the second half of his life in hale health. He kept a travel schedule that would have exhausted seasoned athletes. He beat melanoma in 2000 and bore the scars on his face to prove it. But his final illness, an incurable brain tumor, could not be stopped. As news of his cancer was announced, McCain's colleagues in both parties acknowledged that Congress was losing a singular man.
You are defined by your courage, and you're redeemed by your loyalty. Courage and loyalty. I can think of no better description of the man we're honoring tonight, my friend John McCain.
The one thing that I like most about John McCain, he doesn't run away from the shortcomings. When you balance out John McCain's life, is something we admire. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've been very lucky to be in his shadow and to be his friend.
John McCain is survived by his wife Cindy, 7 children, and his mother Roberta, who is 106 years old and every bit as tough as her son.
Terrific job by Tucker to pull all that together.
Absolutely. Our next guest says Senator McCain always believed in serving a greater purpose and inspired those around him to do the same.
Douglas Holtz-Eakin served as Director of Domestic and Economic Policy for Senator McCain's 2008 presidential campaign. He joins us live now. Good morning, Douglas. We really appreciate you coming in. What are your thoughts as you try to make sense of this? Because we knew this was coming, but I know you served him so closely in that campaign and kept in touch with him, and he meant so much to you. What are you thinking about this morning?
Well, you're right in that it's not a surprise, but it's still just a horrible shock to realize his past and his legacy will endure, and he'll continue to inspire. But it's a tough morning, to be honest.
Doug, let me ask you, you say that something that a lot of people don't talk about is that people like you that have served Senator McCain and worked with him, you did your best work with him. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it just struck me as I thought about his life that, people focus on John, understandably, just a giant man with a huge presence. And there were so many people like me who would say, it was such an honor and a privilege to work for him. And then I realized that I did my best work for him, and I looked at other people and they were at their best for him. And it's because really, in the end, it wasn't for him. If you were around him, you bought into the notion that there was something greater at stake. It was this country, it was this shining city on the hill, and that your efforts were directed toward that. And it inspired all of us to do things that I don't think we otherwise would have done. I let Ed Henry see me without my bare legs. It was a shocking moment.
Oh my gosh, I was going to tell this story, but I wasn't sure it was appropriate. And it's so
not appropriate.
funny you did it because I knew you were emotional. And so on Election Day 2008, I went to interview Douglas Holtz-Eakin, and I had this assignment to do behind the scenes. What's the candidate doing? We were at the Arizona Biltmore, as I recall. And so what do they do on Election Day? They're getting poll numbers. They think they're probably going to lose. And I run into Douglas Holtz-Eakin. I couldn't find other McCain aides. I'm like, please, you got to help me. I'm going to be fired if I don't do this, please. And he's in running shorts. He's like, I just went jogging, dude. Like, give me a minute here. And I said, I got to shoot this piece right now. And to his credit, and why we're friends, is he agreed to do the piece and do the interview. He said, but if you show my knees on TV, I will basically never speak to you again, Henry. And I kept my word and did not show his knees.
He did.
And he helped me. But I was going to mention that story because what I remember about being at that hotel is Election Day. I was covering the McCain side. You're there. You know you're probably going to lose. The polls didn't look good. Everyone still hopes for the best when you're in a campaign, obviously. And that night, we elected the nation's first African-American president. And as the Republican nominee, John McCain could have said a whole bunch of things that night. And I remember him coming out that night and saying, I lost fair and square. I think it's wonderful for this country that we now have a black president for the first time. And he really tried. It didn't always work because there's still a lot of division in this country.
Oh, God,
but he tried to bring people together. What do you remember about that night?
Ed, I'll tell you, it wasn't just that night. That's what he said the whole campaign. He said, we're going to conduct ourselves with honor. We're in the middle of history. He will possibly be the first African-American president, and we are going to conduct ourselves with honor. It was a tremendous act of leadership, because the temptation is the opposite. You know that, of course.
Well, and you worked with him, and you know he's a rebel, that he had a good sense of humor.
Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And he joked so much about himself and didn't take himself too seriously. Joked about having graduated from, the 5th at the bottom of his class. Is that something else that you remember about him?
Oh yes, I mean, I in a fit of lunacy, got frustrated with the press. I know that's shocking, and and they were saying he had no experience as a regulator, and he had been the chairman of the Commerce Committee. But I got frustrated. I pulled out my BlackBerry and I said, "John McCain invented the BlackBerry," and it was a joke. Never tell a joke in a campaign. It went viral that I was claiming he was the next Al Gore and had invented the internet, and they threw me under the bus. And I talked to him about 3 days later, and I said, "I'm sorry about this, Senator. I mean, I really shouldn't have said it." He says, "Oh, don't worry about it." He said, "I'm disappointed no one asked me. I was going to tell him I invented the telegraph."
that shows the man and the sense of humor. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, we're glad you came in. We're glad you wore pants today and not running shorts. Seriously, on a difficult day for you and everybody in the McCain family, appreciate you sharing some wonderful memories. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, our next guest calls Senator McCain an inspiration for her life. Morgan Ortagus, you've seen her on our air. She had Senator McCain as a mentor. What a special opportunity. She's going to talk about that live next.
Nothing is inevitable here. Americans never quit. We never surrender. We never hide from history. We make history. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless America.